Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. We'll just wait for a few more seconds for everyone to come in for today's informative interactive webinar, part 3, Intro to QuickBooks with one of our favorite presenters, Yasne. Definitely enhancing your business knowledge, understanding of QuickBooks. So we'll just wait for a few more seconds. In doing so, strongly encourage you to introduce yourself, what type of business you have, how has been your understanding, your knowledge of QuickBooks from, I just want to hear your feedback. How has it been so far, the previous two trainings, and also some additional challenges, so that throughout today's webinar, we'll be more than happy to moderate those questions on your behalf as well. In addition, this is a recorded webinar. So in case if you have to step out, answer a phone call, just don't hesitate. We'll be more than happy to email you all the presentation and also all the video recording from today's webinar as well. Also, if you have any questions throughout today's webinar, strongly encourage you to put it in the Q&A, as I'll be more than happy to moderate them on your behalf as well. So I'll go ahead and get started, describe briefly of what is the Miami-Dade Business Navigator Program. It is funded through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. The Miami-Dade Business Navigator Program, it was established in part of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 that uses the Community Navigator approach to help you, the small businesses, in the economic recovery. It is comprised as a lead hub. In this case, it is the Florida SBDC at FIU, working with a network of spoke organizations that deploy community advocates to work with small businesses. The overall goal is to assist businesses owned by veterans, women, as well as socially, economically disadvantaged individuals. Along with the Florida SBDC at FIU, as we have 10 specialized consultants to assist with your business needs, but we also have 6 great organizations in the community to work together. So all of these 7 organizations are able to assist you at no cost if you're looking for access to capital, management, and strategy and operations, government contracting, networking opportunities. As we have Ascendis, we have the branches, the EDC of South Miami-Dade, the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, Prospera, Startup FIU Procurement, along with the Florida SBDC at FIU. These 7 organizations are able to assist you, once again, at no cost for you. The Miami-Dade Business Navigator is intended for businesses that are physically located here in Miami-Dade County, but if your business is located in Palm Beach, Broward, Monroe County, we're more than happy to be we'll be more happy to assist you with your business needs. But if your business is outside of the Quad County area, by all means, I will put my email in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to connect you with your local small business resource. With the Miami-Dade Business Navigator Program, it is focused on the 3 key pillars: the mentoring, trainings, and consulting. Definitely encourage you to like and subscribe our social media channels. Follow us. We have different programs, different information for the small businesses. Definitely like and subscribe our YouTube channel, where we have a plethora of a library of recorded webinars to enhance the conversation with your business needs. So I want to thank you for attending today's webinar. Allow me to introduce to you Steve Armin from Branches, and he'll briefly talk about the initiatives, programs, and resources that Branches has to offer for small businesses. So Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jesus. Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to join with Jesus and welcoming everyone to the final installment of our accounting series of training, and more in particular, our Introduction to QuickBooks series, led by our expert and amazing presenter. She's done such a tremendous job in the first 2 webinars, and I'm sure she's gonna just blow everybody's minds this evening as well. Yasne, on behalf of Branches, my colleague Luby, I do want to join with everyone in thanking you again for being our expert presenter today. Just a little bit of information for everyone. For those of you that belong to our Branches business program, after today, Luby and I will be reviewing the attendance of those who would have been with us for basically the 6 webinars, which encompasses the accounting systems training and includes QuickBooks. And what we'll do, based on your need, we'll be looking to provide you with assistance to get your 1-year subscription to QuickBooks. So that starts tomorrow. Tomorrow evening, we also have another training that we'll be co-hosting with our friends at the Navigator. So again, we're always so very grateful to Jesus for the work that he does and for joining with us and for making all this happen. Right. So guys, again, join with me in saying a big thanks to Jesus for the tremendous job that he always does to support businesses in Miami-Dade. And so tomorrow's training is going to be creating your own business model canvas, and that in a way supports the training that's already ongoing in our digital transformation program. So this Friday, our in-person workshop, continuing in our journey to help businesses digitally transform to meet the challenges and the opportunities of today's business environment, that continues. So if any of you are interested in joining that training in person, where we help you to, like I said, digitally transform your business, Luby, my colleague, is going to put her email in the chat. Please reach out to her so that we can properly register you for the event. So with those few words, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. It's a pleasure for us to do our best to assist you. And I'm going to hand over now to Yasne. Yasne, thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you. What a pleasure to be here this evening. Thank you, everybody that's joining. If it's your first time, as I say, you can always watch the recording. And today is part 3 of Introduction to QuickBooks. So let's jump right into it, because I do want to answer your questions. Last time we had a few of them. And today is a continuation. So we're going to be talking more advanced topics and learning. Thank you for your time. That's what it takes to succeed as an entrepreneur. So very briefly, for those of you that were not here in the last few sessions, I'm Yasne Montalvo, and as a business catalyst, I help business owners to organize your finances and operations and maximize your profit so you can access capital. So many things to do in business. We combine the financial management, the efficiency, and the mindset. I'm an FIU graduate of accounting, QuickBooks Certified Pro Advisor, Certified Profit First Professional, also a Clockwork Certified Candidate, and a Neuro-Linguistic Programming Practitioner. And it's what allows me to combine all of these and help business owners to take your business to the next level. And today we're focusing on QuickBooks, where we have been covering these 3 areas when it comes to implementing, organizing, analyzing the information. As a quick recap, so you have an idea of what we have done in this series, and you can always go back to the recording. In the first class, we went over the account and settings, the users, how you can customize the forms and the invoices to align it with your brand, how you design the chart of accounts, how you organize and design your list of products and services. Then we spoke about connecting your bank accounts and credit cards to QuickBooks, classifying transactions from banking, using rules to automate your bookkeeping process, matching deposits with invoice payments so you don't duplicate the revenue. And we went over the QuickBooks register and how to catch some of the mistakes when you're trying to do your bookkeeping. We went over the reports, profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow statement, how you can run your reports by periods, how you compare your reports to different periods, how you can run your reports based on a percentage of income, percentage of expense, how you can filter and customize your reports, because at the end of the day, as a business owner, that's your job. That's the reason why we put in the time to organize our numbers is to analyze them, is to make informed financial decisions. In the part 2, we went a little further into designing the list of products and services and how you linked it to the chart of accounts and the sub accounts, so you can keep track of your revenue by service and see where the money is coming and where the money is going, right? We went over invoicing, bill payment, reconciling the bank accounts, recording loans, and how you separate principal payments from interest. We went over the balance sheet and the statement of cash flow in a little bit more detail. And today we're going to learn more about payroll and the difference between W-2 and 1099 and how you can use QuickBooks to track that, whether it's for you as an employee of your business or subcontractors and employees that you might have. We're going to talk about inventory tracking, and it might not apply to you today if you don't sell products, but it's always good to know because selling products could be another line of revenue as you continue to grow. We're going to speak about projects, and this is an amazing feature that business owners, I feel, have an opportunity to take advantage of. Whether you are in a service industry or construction industry, I'm going to show you from the inside of a sample company how you can use projects, all right? And last but not least, very important, I'm going to continue giving you insights on troubleshooting mistakes. It's very common that business owners jump into trying to use QuickBooks and get the best out of the tools, but you make mistakes. So how do you catch those mistakes? And most importantly, how do you fix it? And I invite you to please communicate in the chat and be very intentional about asking questions, because that's what I'm here for, to answer those pressing questions that YouTube University and Google or even ChatGPT is not going to have the answer, all right? So I'm here to support you and answer your questions. So put them in the chat, and we're going to be very intentional about responding them, all right? So today, instead of the sample company, this is the general sample company that QuickBooks has. Anybody has access to. You have the link in the slides, and we're going to be sharing the slides. I normally use the sample company to take you inside of QuickBooks, but today I'm going to use another company that is actually a subscription that I have for training purposes, because the sample company that QuickBooks offers doesn't have the features on payroll and projects. So I want to show you these more advanced features. So this is still the same QuickBooks. It looks the same. It's just another subscription that I have for training purposes. All right. And today we're going to start with payroll. How many of you, if you could put it in the chat, you could put a number 1 if you anticipate you're going to use the payroll feature, or number 2 if you don't. And payroll meaning you're going to have W-2 employees, or you pay yourself as a W-2 employee. Number 1, you have payroll. Number 2, you do not have payroll. Right? So that way I can get a sense of who's in the room and how in detail I will go over this. Okay, so I see the majority of you don't. I see a few more, 1. So it's kind of getting to a 50-50 now. Okay, so that's another point, Jaslyn. You have payroll, but not with QuickBooks, and that's always an option for sure. Still, you have other companies. Sometimes some accountants provide the payroll service, and some of you have a PEO. Perfect. So this is something for you to keep in mind. I mean, it's just a feature with QuickBooks. And even some of you that don't have payroll, I want to clarify. This is very important because many of you might have heard of the benefits of doing or setting up your company, whether it's you have an LLC or an S corporation, and applying to be classified as an S corporation for tax purposes, right? So how many of you, and you can put in the chat, have an S corporation? If you have an S, just put the letter S in the chat so I can have an idea. All right, perfect. So I see a big, okay. And I see, interesting enough, some of you are putting S in the chat that have an S corporation, but put a 2 that don't have payroll. And this is what I want to clarify for you today. When you have an S corporation for tax purposes, I'm not gonna go into the nitty-gritty of the accounting, but just so you know, and that's another class, but when you have an S corporation, you are considered an employee of your business, okay? And you are supposed to pay yourself a reasonable compensation. When you have a profitable business, of course, if you're not profitable yet, it's okay. But as your business grows and you generate a profit, you're supposed to pay yourself a reasonable compensation as an employee, meaning W-2, meaning you have to set up payroll for yourself as an employee of your business. So those of you that put S, if you don't have payroll yet, pay attention to this because it's something you will need to implement. Why is this extremely important? Because if you don't, everything that you're transferring to your personal account, or if you have money at the end of the year and then you take the money and you transfer it to your personal account, that's considered a distribution. That's not subject to Social Security and Medicare. And that's not contributing to your retirement, okay? And as an S corp, the IRS pays attention to that because that means you're not paying taxes on that. Another class, but just planting that seed because it's extremely important. So when you're ready to set up payroll, and if you decide to do it with QuickBooks, it's a separate subscription, okay? It's not the regular bookkeeping subscription. You have to pay extra. And the payroll subscription is around $45 per month. And then they charge you, I think, like $4 or $5 per employee. That continues to change, but more or less that's the range of payroll core. They have different subscriptions for payroll, but honestly, the payroll core is enough, okay? And in this case, you need to activate that subscription before you can set it up. But you can add the employee. So let me show you how the process is. When you add an employee to your QuickBooks payroll, you need to put the name, you need to put the contact info, the address, you need to put the social, the date that you hired them. If it's yourself, you put the date that you started working on your business. And this is just for internal purposes, right? Whether you're gonna pay them hourly or monthly. And you might ask, Yasnai, yes, I'm an employee of my business. Yes, I have an S corp, but my compensation is not consistent because my business has a lot of ups and downs. And it's okay. You know, you don't have to pay yourself a fixed salary, but QuickBooks Payroll gives you the flexibility of running payroll whenever you're ready to, and even change the compensation depending on your cash flow, okay? So you will enter this information, but that doesn't mean you cannot change it. You need to enter your date of birth, your gender, and it's not gonna let me go to the next step because normally you have to enter this first. But I can tell you that the next step in the payroll setup process is gonna ask you information about the W-4. And it's gonna ask you what are the deductions, if you have dependents, if you're considered single or married filing jointly. So it's pretty much the same information that you will fill out in the W-4 form, and you just have to enter it in QuickBooks. And if you have dependents, you will put $2,000 for each dependent. Okay, so that's that initial setup. QuickBooks really takes you step by step through it. And when you're ready to run payroll, actually, I'm gonna take you inside my own QuickBooks. And I'm not gonna go into my personal information because this is gonna be on YouTube, but so you see how is the setup, right? For example, I have an S Corp. I am an employee of my business. I said myself, I'm here as an employee, right? And yes, that's the pay rate that I have, but I can always modify it. And when everything is set up, you can choose whether you want direct deposit or not. I highly recommend you set direct deposit, and QuickBooks is gonna prompt you to connecting your QuickBooks to the bank account. So they take care of taking the money from the account and deposit it to your personal. QuickBooks takes care of taking the money from the taxes and paying it to the IRS. They take care of everything, really. And this is the beauty of you having an S Corp. And I will be very transparent here. I have $3,000 per month as the reasonable compensation today, but some months I pay myself more than that. And that I don't have to do it through payroll. I transfer it to my personal account, and that's considered a distribution, right? So as an S Corp, a portion of what you pay yourself is payroll, the rest is distribution, and as long as you pay yourself a reasonable salary, the IRS is fine with it, okay? So when everything is set up, all you have to do is run payroll, and look how this would look. I'm not gonna run it right now, but it's gonna ask you to choose the payroll period, what will be the pay date. You see, there is flexibility. And if for some reason you need to update the salary amount for that period, you can edit it, right? And you can kind of update it. And that's it. Really, when you run payroll, you verify that this is correct. You preview. You preview, it will give you some information, and it's gonna tell you, okay, this is how it's gonna look like. This is the total payroll cost for you because you're gonna pay yourself this much, and then these are the taxes that we're deducting. QuickBooks will tell you which account are we funding it from. This is the account I have for my owner's compensation. It's gonna tell you which account is in your chart of accounts. This is how it looks like. It gives you a summary, and then you just click on submit payroll. Is that easy? Is that easy? And even the setup is pretty straightforward, but once it's all said and done, that's it. It takes 2 clicks to run payroll. And you can even do it automatic. I prefer not to, but once you can always set it up if you just want to take it off your to-do list and set it up in automatic, okay? So that is the payroll process. And what I want to show you is the difference between that and 1099, because when you have an independent contractor, that's considered a vendor of your business. You don't have to pay a payroll subscription for subcontractors. And how it will look like, let's see if I go to payroll. Instead of employees, you go to the contractors tab, right? And then you add your contractor. You put the name, So let me just put myself here as an example. You put the email, and then honestly, when you leave this checked, the contractor is gonna receive an email for them to finish completing the information. But I'm gonna uncheck this, so I show you how you do it internally instead of letting it up to the contractor, because honestly, sometimes I don't fill it out correctly. And this is when you collect a W-9 form. Remember, when you have a subcontractor, you're supposed to collect a W-9, and that W-9 is gonna have the information about the subcontractor, the business, or if they're self-employed, their personal information, and that's what you will need to put here. So at the end of the year, QuickBooks can generate a 1099 to submit to the IRS and to send to the contractor so they can file their taxes. Somebody's asking which system is this? We're talking about QuickBooks, and this is QuickBooks Payroll, which is already integrated in the system, all right? This is QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Online. So when you pay yourself, do I need to issue myself a W-1099? Well, it's either a W-2 if you're on payroll or a 1099. So when you pay yourself, if you're paying yourself through payroll as a W-2, QuickBooks will generate a W-2 for you. And if you, depends on your tax classification, right? If you are considered a sole proprietorship and you don't have to do payroll, you don't need to issue yourself a 1099. No, you will only issue 1099s to the subcontractors that you pay. You automatically be taxed if you fill out the Schedule C on your taxes, and you don't need to issue a 1099 for yourself. All right. LLC, one member, is automatic for tax purposes as sole proprietor. You just fill the Schedule C and you don't have to worry about issuing a 1099 for yourself. All right. Perfect. So when you have a subcontractor, you need to add here the personal details. Is that an individual filing with their Social Security, or do they have a business? And depending on the situation, and this is based on what they put in the W-9 form, that's the one you collect when you hire the subcontractor. Then you put the business name, the EIN, the address, or if it's individual, it's gonna ask you for the Social Security number and the address, okay? You set it up. And the beauty of this is that every time you pay the subcontractor, whether you do it through QuickBooks or not, it's gonna track all the payments that you made that person. And then at the end of the year, QuickBooks will automatically help you issue that 1099, okay? So you don't have to worry about tax season with that January 31st deadline to issue 1099s, all right? Now I see another question. Is my own salary considered an expense to the business to deduct from taxes? Yes, when you pay yourself a salary through payroll, it is an expense to the business for sure. And as an S Corp in your taxes, there is a separate line to put officers' compensation, because the IRS wants to know, okay, you are an officer of your business, are you paying yourself a salary? So yes, it's deductible as an expense, not only the salary, but also the taxes. Because when you have payroll, you as an employer have to pay half of the Social Security and the Medicare. And guess what? You are the employer and you are the employee. So half of it is deductible for the business. The rest they deducted from your paycheck, and then it comes with your W-2. So yes, it's considered a business expense. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So feel free to continue asking questions in the chat. I'm paying attention. And yes, you do need to add the income in your income tax return because you're gonna have a W-2. So your W-2 is gonna be reflected on the 1040, your personal tax return. It's gonna be reflected on your income taxes at the personal level. And in conclusion, you always ask for W-2 form to all contractors before they provide any services. Not W-2, the W-9. What you ask your contractors, and let me put it in the chart, is the W-9 form, okay? Let me clarify all these W's, okay? W-9 is what you ask the subcontractor, all right? W-4 is similar as the W-9, but for employees, right? So W-4 is what you ask the employee when you're first hiring them. That's for payroll. And W-2 is what you send the employee at the end of the year so they can file their taxes. And 1099 is what you send the subcontractor at the end of the year so they can file their taxes, all right? And then there is another W that internally the payroll system sends to the IRS, which is a W-3. You normally don't deal with that, but so we get a little bit of more clarity on all the W's. 1 second. All right, perfect. So we went over the information about payroll, and let's see what we have next in the agenda. Besides having my baby in the back. 1 second.
Also, in the time being, and everyone that has registered for today's webinar has already been manually registered for tomorrow's webinar. So right there, we're just getting the traction for tomorrow's Business Model Canvas webinar, just giving everyone a housekeeping item.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. This is the beauty of working from home and having a 3.5-year-old. But that is to him. So next in the agenda is inventory tracking. How many of you sell products? So I kind of know how much time to invest in this, or if I just give you a quick overview. How many of you sell products that you need to track inventory? All right, perfect. So I see a few. Yeah. All right, perfect. So even if you don't, please bear with us because this is an important subject. And if you do start selling products in the future, you have more information. All right. So very quick. And services. So the example that I gave you last time was focused on adding a new service, where is, when you add a service, and we went over the example. The difference when you sell products is that when you add a list of products and services, when you add a new one, you put that is an inventory or non-inventory. Normally, if you sell products, you might want to keep track of your inventory. Okay, so you choose inventory product, and then here you need to put the name, the category. This information is exclusive for products, how many you have on hand, as of which date, because this allows you to keep track of your inventory, right? If you want to keep track of the reorder point, QuickBooks will give you an alert when you have low stock of inventory. And this is the key. We spoke about the chart of accounts and how in QuickBooks everything is connected, right? So here it's very important that you use the inventory account where you tracking your asset. You choose the income account. And even if you have to create a particular sub account for that product, make sure that you choose it in the setup process. And you choose the expense account, because this is what happens with products. There are 3 different components into this. You purchase it, so it's going to be in your inventory until you sell it, right? So QuickBooks tracks that. The money comes in when you sell your product, so that goes to your income account. But the product that you're selling, you had to pay for it, whether you're purchase it to resell it, or if you had some sort of manufacturing, let's pretend that I have this pen, right? And I'm selling it for $1, but it cost me 50 cents. So the cost of goods sold is 50 cents, right? And that's why QuickBooks asks you for the expense account of cost of goods sold to keep track of all of this automatically. You don't have to do the math in your head, but QuickBooks will keep track of all of it, all right? And that's why it asks you all of this information. It's very important. Most of us, well, most of you, I don't sell products yet. I did sell a lot of it in my family business. I do have a lot of experience with products. It's complicated, so I get it. But my family, for 17 years, my parents own a convenience store. So products is everything in a convenience store. I definitely get it. Now keep in mind, if you sell online, you have an e-commerce platform, Shopify, Squarespace. Nowadays, you can sell products. You could sync your e-commerce platform to QuickBooks, all right? So you don't have to enter every product manually. QuickBooks will bring that data from your e-commerce platform. What you gotta make sure is when you're doing that setup, you're mapping things correctly, right? I encourage you, if that's what you wanna do, get some help, because I've seen very messy QuickBooks trying to do the setup with the e-commerce, and it gets messy, but it can be done for sure. And QuickBooks has apps, like for example here, when you go to the App Center, and let's say you have this Shopify, right? Shopify by Connector, that's an app that would allow you to sync with Shopify, or Amazon, or eBay, or Squarespace. I encourage you to look at the ratings of the apps, the comments. Some of them work well, some of them can be tricky. WooCommerce works with WordPress as one of the plugins. And honestly, from my experience and my clients that are in this industry, there is an app that's called Cinder. This one, Cinder. This is one of the, like you can tell, it has 1,700 ratings, almost 5 stars. And it is for a reason. It's one of the best apps to sync with e-commerce. And it syncs with multiple platforms. You don't have to have multiple apps. It's not free. They have different price ranges depending on your volume, but it's one of the best for sure. It's called Cinder, okay? So whenever you're syncing, please, let's use technology for your advantage, so you don't have to update QuickBooks and update the website, and everything should be connected, all right? So that's what I have from Savely. How did you get to that page? Well, how did I get to the page on the apps? In QuickBooks, in the left navigation panel, this black column right here, you're gonna see this option called apps. And then you can find apps, and that's what's gonna take you to the App Center, where you could, a lot of those apps are free, some of them are paid. So you need to do your research. And this applies not only for inventory, but let's say if you have a CRM, a customer relationship management system, it connects with MailChimp, it connects with multiple CRM. There are ways to connect your QuickBooks with the other services that you have, but you need to always check if the app is available, okay? Perfect. And the page for inventory, you go on sales, and then go to products and services. And here is where, if you have inventory, you see whatever you add, you're gonna see what type of product is or service it is. Here we have service, but I have a few that are inventory, so you can always add a new one from here and choose its inventory, non-inventory, service, or bundle. So sales, products, and services. Perfect. So last question on this topic, I see what is the category for a fresh baked good? Will QuickBooks keep track of my costs? Hi, Luisa, that's such a great question. I know QuickBooks will not keep track of, well, this is the thing. There are two ways to keep track of your cost of goods when you manufacture, which in your case, you're manufacturing your products, right? You're gonna purchase your products and they're gonna come through banking. And whenever you go to Jethro, for example, you're gonna see, let me see the banking. Let me go and whenever you go to Jethro, you're gonna see in the transactions, okay, I spent $200 in Jethro, but those $200 might be $30 in sugar, $30 in flour, you know. I know it gets complicated. With QuickBooks, all you can do, if you will, to keep your life easier is to tell this $200 was supplies and materials, right? So at least you classify your expenses by supplies and materials, product ingredients, and you have the general classifications for accounting purposes. But what you have to do, my friend, and this I might need to give you as an additional resource, this is another class, but what you have to do, I have a template that is in Excel, and it's gonna break down let's say you're baking an empanada, right? We have to look at the recipe of that empanada, right? And then you put, okay, that empanada, I need beef, I need flour, you have to break down all the ingredients, what is the portion of the ingredient. It gets deeper. And I have a template that's gonna walk you through it. I'm gonna add it in the list of resources so you don't have to create it yourself, but you have to break down the recipe and see how much flour did I put in this batch, right? And the beauty of the template I have is that it also includes the packaging, includes the labor cost. It's a separate math that you have to do when you manufacture, and QuickBooks is not gonna do that math for you. We have to take it to Excel. There are programs that do it, but the Excel spreadsheet will give you some insights. All right, so thank you for that question. Very good question. And if you're selling food, you have to do this homework. Extremely crucial, because that is the cost of your product. And how do you know if you're selling at a price that you're making money or not, right? So yes, I'm gonna share that, and I'm glad you have a similar spreadsheet. Recipe is a tool for sure. There are a lot of tools. You can do the old school spreadsheet, but there are a lot of very good technology to help you with that. Perfect. All right, so that's inventory. The next item in the list is projects. And projects, let me actually show you, because this is something that I personally love to do. Again, this is a sample company that I use for training purposes, but let me show you how projects work. Extremely important. Is some industries more crucial than others. If you are in the construction industry, you have to use projects. There is no way, because in construction, for example, you might have multiple sites running at the same time. Then you have materials and labor and a bunch of things that go into it. How do you know if you're making money? Projects is not an additional feature, but it is a feature that is available only in the Plus subscription and in the Advanced subscription. So you do need to upgrade if you're not in Plus or Advanced. And as a refresher, QuickBooks Online has Simple Start, Essential, Plus, and Advanced. So to get access to projects, you need to be in Plus at a minimum. Okay, so this is how projects work. Here I have a few that I've been testing, but I'm going to show you how to create a project from scratch and how it works. Let's pretend I have I actually use projects for my own business, even though I'm in a service business, because I want to know my margins on certain things, right? For example, I am going to be doing some conferences in partnership with the city of Miami. Those conferences have a lot that go into it, right? Is the venue, is the food, is the marketing, is the vendors, all of that. I want to know all those expenses and whether I'm going to make money or not. So let's pretend I'm going to create a project for my Profit First conference, right? And this, just to give you an example, it's gonna ask you who is your customer. In this case, it says patient because it's kind of the setup, like if it was a medical industry, but I could change that in the settings. So let's pretend my customer for this is Miami-Dade County. All right. And the start date, well, I'm expecting it's gonna start whenever it starts. I don't know. Let's put November. And then it's gonna end sometime next year. This is gonna ask you for the project status. In this case, it has not started yet, but when it's in progress, you put in progress, completed, or cancel. So let's pretend it's in progress, and you can add details here internally for your information. It's gonna open up a project, right? Here's the beauty of this. Now it's empty, but when I send an invoice to the county, I'm gonna add to my project an invoice, right? And we went over invoices last time. Let me just do one really quickly with any service here. I don't know, like anything. It's just to test this. So I'm gonna add this, like just services, right? And the rate, 500, and I just save and close this invoice. Now my project is looking like I have $500 of income. And the beauty is that in the transactions, I can see the in and outs, right? So I can see my invoice as well here in my general invoices. It's showing as Miami-Dade County Profit First conferences, but it's also showing in my project. When I go to Profit First conferences, I see the records. And do you know the beauty of this? Now it's saying, okay, $500 income, you have 100% profit margin. Wait a second, I have expenses. So when I classify things for banking, let's say that I pay the vendor for food a $200 deposit, I don't know, whatever that is. Let me see why it's not showing my bank connections here. Well, when you classify things from banking, as I showed you last time, you can choose to put things inside the project, right? So let's say I am spending $200 in food, and for some reason banking is not opening, but let me go back to projects and let's pretend I'm adding the expense manually. But you could always add the expense from banking, and it's going to give you the option to choose the project, right? So who did I pay? Well, I pay, I don't know, this vendor, the category, I'm not gonna add food, but let's just put any account for purposes of the example. No, that's not a good example. Don't put things in uncategorized expense. So let's put, I just put coaching services, 200, because that's part of the project, right? When I put that expense, I'm gonna save and close. And now in my project, it's showing that I have, oh wait, I didn't add it to the project. Let me go back to expenses. This is the key. The expense is still in your QuickBooks, but the key is that you assign that expense to the project. So I forgot to do that. You put profit first, conferences, perfect. When I do that, now it assigns it. And when I go to projects, I check the profit first conference, and now it's telling me, yes, you have $300. $500 came in, $200 went out. So it should calculate this as a cost. I don't know why it's not putting it, and it should give you update the profit margin, but I have to see why it's doing this. Maybe because of the time. I don't know. But the idea, and let me actually show you a very complete project that I've been working on for my own business, so you get to see the ins and outs. When I first opened my membership, I created a project because I wanted to keep track of the investment and whether it's going to be profitable or not. So I have a project called MBC Mentoring Community, and this is more complete, so you can see the big picture, right? I can see in transactions all the money that has come in and the expenses in relationship to this project. I invested in training, I invested in a platform, I invested, all of this. So far it's telling me this has been my profit margin since inception. So that's what projects give you. It gives you an overview of your income, the costs associated, what is the profit, you can list them, and you can even see a project report. It's gonna give you a profit and loss, particularly for that project, all right? Extremely crucial, so you understand your profit margin per project. If you have invoices in relationship with that, you can even keep track of time per project, and you can use QuickBooks Time for that. So that's the beauty of it. And this is really what you get out of it, is insights, is information to see whether this project is profitable or not, okay? So that's what I wanted to show you. Let me see the comments. Can you show how to get a report by project? Oh, that's exactly what I just showed you now. You go to project reports and project profitability. And then you can even choose the dates. And it's the same features as when you run a profit and loss. Like I can choose all days. I can run it by month. I can compare with other periods. It's the same features as you run a P&L, but you get it inside the project, right? So you run a report by project. Yeah, there might be an issue with banking. Betty's saying that there was an issue with banking. That might be the case where I'm not able to open it. Yes, who have access to the recording is gonna be on YouTube. You're gonna receive the email. And Luisa is asking, in baking/catering, would you recommend this to track expense profit per event? Absolutely, Luisa, because events can get complicated. And yes, you can send your invoices and keep track of the event, of the vendors that you're paying, the supplies that you're purchasing for that event. Yes, it will be a great way to keep track of it. The more complex version of using projects that I've helped a client to implement was in a travel agency. And that was such an interesting project. I have a client that, well, actually two of them, they own travel agencies and they do a project for each booking because they want to know the profitability of that booking. If the client is going to a cruise, but they have to pay the agent, they have to pay the cruise company, they have to pay fees, all of these in and outs. How do you know how much money are you really making in that booking as a travel agent, right? So you can be creative on how you use it. Anything that you want to keep track of income and expenses and understand the true profitability, you can use a project for. All right. And can you put the information for raw material costs in the project? If you purchased it using your bank account, yes, but the nitty-gritty of just keeping track of it, I will take it outside of the projects because it can get intense. Like raw material cost per item, go to use in projects whatever transactions you're paying with your checking account, the money's coming in, going out. But sometimes when you do this calculation of raw materials per item, it's very specific to the recipe, right? But yes, let's say that you are doing a catering and you are purchasing raw material particular to deliver on that catering event, yes, then put those, whatever purchases you made for that catering event, put it in the project. But don't go into the 30 cents for these or because that's more internally, okay? It's just whatever you're purchasing. And which version of QuickBooks allows you to share the screen with overview of projects? Is the Plus subscription. And let me show you really quickly. When you go to QuickBooks, you see the different options. Plus is the one that says project profitability. You need the Plus, okay? Or of course the Advanced has it too, but at a minimum you need the Plus. Perfect, great questions. And now, this is a good question, Lisette. Your boss has the overview, but I don't. And it depends on how your boss set up your QuickBooks. Because remember, when you have multiple users in QuickBooks, you can manage what the users can see. You can edit and say, okay, I want this user to have access to the project or not. So maybe it's something that they did the setup internally for your particular user. Perfect. So it's really 2 minutes to 7. We were supposed to finish at 7, but I'm happy to stay a few more minutes if you have questions, because one of the common questions that I get is, how do I fix my own mistakes in QuickBooks, right? So I understand if you need to go, but if you have questions, this is the time to ask, because I can give you the answer showing you how to do it, how to fix it, how to get there. So feel free to put your questions in the chat and we can have a quick Q&A. Okay.
Okay. Yes, I have a few Q&As for you, okay?
All right.
Going back to payroll, when you were doing your example, I saw that you were paying yourself in hourly basis. Is there a choice for an employees that you pay on salary on the payroll?
You know, that's a good question. And I set up, QuickBooks is going to ask you to put the number of hours estimated, but I don't pay myself in an hourly basis. I pay a salary, right? It's just that QuickBooks does the math. It based on how many hours a week you're telling that you're working. So even though you saw whatever amount of hours QuickBooks put, it's just that the system does this internal calculation for the setup, but I am setting it up as a fixed salary.
Okay. Does QuickBooks Payroll offer E-Verify for the I-9s?
No. I E-Verify for, actually, they might if you register for the payroll, because payroll is a separate subscription. So let me actually show you. They have payroll core. Here, they're not gonna do it. In payroll premium, they include like 401k plans and health benefits and all of that. They might include it here, but it might not be worth it for you to pay the higher subscription just to do the E-Verify. So just use a separate service that focuses on that. Okay.
When I pay myself, do I need to issue myself a 1099?
No. I think I saw that question in the other chat.
Okay.
No, if you are a sole proprietor, you don't need to issue yourself a 1099.
Okay. Do the payroll in QuickBooks help file the state unemployment and the F-941 for IRS?
Yes, very good question. They do. At the payroll core, which is the lowest payroll subscription, they do. And that's the beauty of automating all of this process. When you do the setup, you have to enter your number, the ID that you have with the Florida Department of Revenue. They will pay the insurance with the Florida Department of Revenue. They will also pay the IRS the 941 every 3 months, the 940 every year, and the RT6. Everything they take care of. That's why you're paying, really. When you think, oh, I'm paying a subscription, well, you're paying for the service of them using their technology to automate all of this for you. So you don't have to worry about a thing.
Okay, and then I have a question in the chat, and then afterwards I'll go to the Q&A. Can you guys offer recommendations for bookkeepers, accountants that are good and knowledgeable with e-commerce, but not so expensive? Under the Miami-Dade Business Navigator program, that is outside the scope of our services, but in the chat, I put my email address, so I'll be more than happy to provide you that referral list of accountants and bookkeepers that we have. Okay. Okay. Okay, you're welcome. When you need to fix the inventory, what is the best way you can recommend?
Oh gosh, it depends what you're trying to fix. Because sometimes the inventory, and meaning if you only have the inventory in QuickBooks, I assume, because if what you have to fix is something that you're bringing from the e-commerce platform, then we have to disconnect it and clean it up, right? But when you have things to fix in QuickBooks, when you're keeping track of inventory, the first thing you have to look at is, well, my list of my inventory, right? And if there is a mistake in the price, on the cost, all of this is connecting with the cost of goods sold and all of that. So first thing, check your list of inventory items. You can edit here, whatever you enter, and make sure that the accounts are mapped correctly and you're using that correctly. Now, the other way to kind of catch your mistakes in QuickBooks when it comes to inventory is run a report, right? Go to reports, and if I type inventory here, it will give you inventory valuation detail, inventory summary, physical inventory worksheet. So let's say this, for example. You can just check what you have here and kind of cash, is the quantity okay, what I have on hand. So yeah, I would say the reports help you identify it. To fix it, you have to go to the list of products and services. And if there are some transactions that already went through, you might need to go back to the register and, you know, deal with the reconciliation process. I gotta tell you, because somebody asked about getting assistance. Inventory is complex, and people that specialize in e-commerce, and when they do a good job, it's complex. So you might want to make the investment to get the support, okay? Because it is what it is.
Okay. All right. So I have multiple questions here in the Q&A. Then I'll hop over to the chat. What report would you use to review the profit made on an estimate versus the purchase orders we placed to fulfill a contract?
Well, if it's an estimate, oh, you're trying to compare, okay, I estimated this, but really the purchase order was this. So you want to see the difference between the estimate and what you actually fulfill. You know, somebody asked me about purchase orders last time, and this is what I think QuickBooks Desktop is still the one that does purchase order. When you do a purchase order, that's an internal document for your team to fulfill an order, right? QuickBooks doesn't really give, let me check, because if you do estimate and progress invoicing, That's a good way to look at it. You can compare. You can compare the estimates that have been accepted versus the amount of invoices in relationship to that project. So that is the best report that you can look at least in QuickBooks Online. And if you have desktop, it must have something similar. So it's called Estimates and Progress Invoicing Summary. So you can check that.
Okay. What report would you use? No, I do apologize. How can I fix my books when I rectify my account, meaning that I entered the wrong account for my ending balance?
Well, it depends on which account. Well, really the best way to fix your books, if you realize you entered the wrong account, is go back to that transaction and tell them what the correct account is, right? So the easier way to find that is go to your chart of accounts, right? And if you know, for example, you have, or maybe in your reports actually, because when you identify there is a mistake, is because you normally saw it in your report. So let's pretend you run your profit and loss and you have this $75 in tolls, but you realize this was not, for example, this was not supposed to be tolls, this was supposed to be parking. How do I fix it? Well, just come here to the category and change it. Change it to parking. And as soon as you change it here, then QuickBooks would do the thing. You see, it disappeared from this list. It's gonna show in the correct category in the report. Now, when you have a lot of those to go through, because it can get, just doing one by one. When you work with an accountant, there are two ways to do it. We have this accountant tool where we can reclassify transactions and we can do a bunch of transactions at the same time. And this is in a way how we get to clean up your books, right? But if you're doing it yourself, now QuickBooks has the option of, let's say you go to expenses and you can sort your list of expenses. All of this was classified in QuickBooks, right? So let's pretend I can sort by category. When you click at the top of the column, you can sort and change the way it filters the information. So if I'm sorting by category, and then I realize, you know what? All this, let's say all this Apple thing, I put it in the wrong thing. So I'll click and you can choose a lot of them. You can even choose the shift and choose multiple at a time. And instead of doing one by one, you can go at the top and do a batch action. And when you do a batch, you say categorize expense. So when I do this, I say all of this that was Apple, I put it in the wrong thing. That was not supposed to be equipment. That was supposed to be subscriptions, right? So you can change it to the correct account. And that's it. It will move it to the correct place. So this is kind of a way to reclassify things in batch when it comes to expenses. If it's something that is run in an invoice, then you have to go back to the original invoice and fix it.
Can you go back over paying yourself as a sole proprietor if you're an S corp for tax purposes?
All right. So I have, let me share a whiteboard. All right, let me do some drawing here. Paying yourself as a sole proprietor when you are an S corp for tax purposes. If you have an S corp, right? You are supposed to pay yourself. You can pay yourself in two ways, right? As a W-2 employee, that's payroll, and this is for a reasonable compensation. That's you paying yourself as an employee a salary, right? And the rest is considered a distribution, right? That it comes out in your taxes as a K-1. So let me actually give you, I'm gonna show you how this looks like in the profit and loss, but these are the two ways you pay yourself when you have an S-Corp as an officer of your business. What's gonna happen? Let's pretend that you pay yourself a reasonable salary of $25,000 a year because that's what you're more or less in the income that you have. But your business had a net income of 50,000, right? Now, mind you, that 25,000 that you pay yourself is a deductible business expense. So after paying yourself, your business had a $50,000 of net income, clean, gain for you, profit, right? What's gonna happen as an S-Corp? This 50,000 is gonna still go to your personal taxes as a distribution, but it's not subject to Social Security or Medicare, right? Meaning you will only pay taxes at the personal level, you pay income taxes. So how your, and I normally am very visual, so this is kind of another class, but I like to show you the tax form, where would it be, how the K-1 looks like. But to answer your question, for tax purposes, you're going to pay yourself a compensation. This is W-2. It's gonna show your personal taxes too as salary. It's a deductible expense for your business. You pay Social Security and payroll taxes for the $25,000 that you pay yourself as W-2. Now, the other 50 is distribution. And the benefit of you doing a distribution is that you're saving about 15.4% in taxes because that's not subject to Social Security and Medicare. Why is it important to be reasonable and to make sure that you're paying yourself a reasonable salary at a minimum? Because the IRS wants to collect Social Security and Medicare. It's that simple, right? What is reasonable? There's a gray line. It depends on your industry. It depends on your business. How much you will need to pay someone else to do it if you had to hire somebody. That's a kind of a rule to follow. But honestly, at the beginning, there is some wiggle room with this. You do not want to abuse somehow that benefit because, you know, they want to collect their taxes.
Okay, so in payroll, so here's another question. So in payroll, I just place a salary on a yearly basis and QuickBooks will calculate the hourly automatically.
Yes, you could put that, let's say you're paying yourself a $50,000 salary, but QuickBooks will break it down because you're not paying yourself $50,000 one time per year. So they kind of calculate the hourly based on payroll period. So you will say, okay, it's a $50,000 salary, but they will break it down. Okay, how many weeks are you gonna pay yourself weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? So if you're telling QuickBooks, I'm gonna pay myself once a month, then they will divide it by 12 months and will calculate the hours based on the monthly period.
And then I have the last question here. Should I take out taxes for my employees or is their responsibility to do their own taxes? I usually give them a check for a total amount of hours they work. Example, $16 an hour for 5 hours.
Well, it depends if those people are an employee or a subcontractor, right? If they're employee, meaning that you have control of their schedule, their equipment, there is a guideline in the IRS that's gonna tell you the difference between employee and subcontractor. If it's an employee, you are responsible for deducting their taxes and for paying those taxes to the IRS, Social Security and Medicare. And you have to pay half of their Social Security and Medicare as an employer. Okay, so that's why we use systems like QuickBooks Payroll to facilitate that, so you don't have to do it manually and fill out the forms. The system would do it, but you are responsible. If they are employees, consider employee. If they're subcontractors, meaning they are independent, right? They manage their own schedule, they have their own equipment, there is a line that differentiates that, then you don't have to be responsible for that. You give them the paycheck. At the end of the year, you're gonna issue a 1099 and tell the IRS, I paid this subcontractor $10,000. So the IRS will know that this person, when they file the taxes, they have to report and pay their own taxes.
Okay, so that concludes all the questions. So I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Also, I have put in the link, so you could definitely go ahead and register for Zoom for tomorrow's webinar, in terms of building your business model canvas, which is informative, from one of our great presenters, Adriana Madrinin, and also Yasnay Montalvo from the last 3 weeks. So once again, I want to thank you all for attending today's webinar. I'll pass the baton for Steve for closing thoughts, and I'll be definitely seeing y'all tomorrow. So Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Jesus. Just chiming in to say thank you to Yasnay as well. Yasnay, it has been wonderful. Hope to have you do this series again for businesses. And guys, please feel free to reach out to Yasnay after, right? I know she would have shared the information. Yasnay has a consultancy, and she does do a lot of work with small businesses in the accounting space. So you'd be really, really privileged to engage with Yasnay in the future. And yeah, thank you as well, everyone, for turning out tonight. Looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. And for those of you that would like to join the digital transformation training on Friday, please reach out to Luby and she'll take good care of you. So Jesus, thanks again, my friend. Have a good night, everyone.
All right, have a good night. Take care, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.